Today, we are revisiting this story around CT machines being used to scan through boxes of sports cards and trading cards because we have some updated information that should honestly scare the living daylights out of you because a company has come out and is now offering this as a service to customers, which is beyond absurd and honestly scares the crap out of me, especially if you're somebody like me that likes to buy packs and boxes of, sports cards and trading cards, because this could be the death of being able to do that on the secondary market. That does sound obscene. It does sound absurd. What I'm about to show you will highlight that, it's not, a super far-fetched thing to be saying. Now, in addition to just highlighting this news, I also want to talk to the fact that, Fanatics and Tops and the likes of the Pokemon TCG, etc., need to be doing things better to stop and protect customers from being exposed to this kind of thing. And I want to share some insights as to what that might look like. And then I also want to clarify towards the end of this video, the Fanatics actually reached out to me for some insights, and I'm sort of not heard a response back from them, but I'm curious to see whether they're going to do that now after seeing news like this, because this is quite an alarming situation. So stay tuned, we'll go through everything, and we'll probably just kick things off with my video from 12 days ago, where I talked about the fact that, somebody made a post in China basically saying, well, now that Panini's losing their license, I'm going to spill the beans. People can use CT machines to scan through high-end boxes in order to find things like Logo Man 1-of-1s, etc. And we talked through that in the video, how it was insane, the fact that they were searching through a case of Flawless and they were able to spot these Logo Men, and it's quite concerning. You can sort of see it there on screen where the mouse is once I move it, that you can in fact see that it is the Logo Man. You can't see who the player is, but quite an alarming thing to think about. And it went to the things I've talked to in the past about, so much money being in this space that people are finding, more and more avenues to try and scam the system. Now, this wasn't super crazy because getting access to a CT machine didn't seem all that plausible for a lot of people, but it seemed to be one of those things on the high end where clearly people were manipulating this for a long time. And what the guy talks to in the post was that, this has been happening in China for a long time. The reason why I'm talking about this again today is because, like I said, a company has come out and started offering this as a service. And that is very, very concerning because it means that it's going to become a bit more, mainstream. And sort of the way that it did in fact happen was that, the likes of Rattle Pokemon covered the same story I did. And then what also happened a few days after that being released was that another individual made a video basically showing that he could do it with a very affordable CT scanning machine. And I think the one that he was using cost like $1,500. It was broken or something. The guys repaired it, got it up to a point of being used again, which was quite, a unique situation. They're not going to be available to buy for that kind of money. These machines are very, very expensive. But what this did highlight was that this has been happening for a long time in the Pokemon space. And what you can sort of see in this original video from Rattle is that they're able to sort of see the outline of the character, the outline of the holo they're trying to chase, which means that it's actually quite easy to spot this stuff when it comes to TCG things too. And that means that people can search for this thing and rip even more people off. Now, this video was posted by Rattle 9 days ago. It references this video over here with these guys basically saying it's been happening for a long time. And the reason why they've changed from keeping a secret mindset is that, this company over here had made a blog post talking about doing the exact same thing. And they've also got a YouTube video, which is from, June 26th, so about a month ago. Now, that is very, very key because this company over here is in fact the one that is now offering this as a service, which is absurd because, like I just referenced, these guys basically said they had it as a secret. They kept it a secret. So who knows how long it's actually been happening and how many packs have actually been sold to people that are unaware they're not going to get anything. Now, from, a loose pack perspective, you shouldn't be too concerned because people weigh packs and they know which ones can contain a holo. But this is more of a concern, obviously, for boxes. And what this post does also go into is that it does, in fact, work for boxes as well. And you can sort of see here, even with the newer, type of products, they can, again, spot them. Very hard to see, but still to a point where you can have more confidence than not that something fishy is going on. Now, earlier today, a lot of people sent me a bunch of videos and news because guess what? That same company that I just referenced is now offering it as a service. So obviously Rattle gets a shout out for this. He released his video a little bit earlier today. I haven't watched it in detail. I'll just skim through portions of it because I always like to share my own, unbiased views. I don't want to repeat what others are saying. So I'll go back and watch it afterwards. If you, have already seen it, please give him a thumbs up. But like I said, this company that I referenced earlier that made this post a month ago is now offering this as a service. And you can sort of see their pricing model over here. 1 to 5 packs is going to cost $75 a pack, 6 to 10, $70. Pack scanning for 11 plus is $65 per pack. And then box scanning is to be determined, which is absurd and should scare the living daylights out of you because this is basically very mainstream now. When we saw this original video over here, we basically spoke to the fact that, it's quite a difficult thing to sort of happen because the machines are very expensive. You have to get access to a hospital perhaps to try and get access to the machine, or you have to know a doctor, whatever, right? Quite a difficult thing to get through. But now that you've got a company that's actually doing it for an affordable price, is bloody alarming, because if this thing does kick off, you're going to see a lot more other companies start offering this too, and are going to start thinking it's going to get a lot cheaper than what it currently is over here. And you guys might say, well, $65 a pack, that's not too crazy, or that's a crazy price, I should say. When you look at vintage Pokemon as an example, that's chump change. If you can guarantee that you're going to find a Charizard and you're going to chase all the Charizards, you're going to buy all the packs out there, you can manipulate the market like crazy. And that's why, it goes to what I said at the start. You should be bloody concerned if you think this stuff, is not going to affect you in some capacity. I don't want to be doom and gloom. I hate being doom and gloom when it comes to stuff like this. And maybe if those of us didn't make these videos, this wouldn't have become mainstream. Some of you guys will say that. They'll say that you talked about it, so you brought it mainstream. But, like that post I mentioned, it's been happening for years in the Pokemon space, apparently. So, now it's out in the wild, so it's a bit more fair game for people. You sort of know what you're getting. But it goes to what I said, right? You need to be concerned that this stuff is happening. So what are next steps? Well, I think next steps are that the Pokemon TCG company and the likes of Fanatics, Topps, Panini need to start manufacturing these packs in ways that blocks this type of signal when it comes to scanning these things. And I don't know, how affordable that is, but like I said, if this becomes more mainstream and more people get clued on to the fact that you can manipulate the market doing stuff like this and make a lot of money, they're going to bloody do it, right? It's not going to be a small problem for much longer, in my opinion. I've said in my opinion a lot, so I do apologize, but you guys get, where I'm going. This is not going to stay a small problem or a niche problem for very long. So these companies need to think of ways to sort of protect consumers, and that's going to go down to, wrapping these things in things that can block those signals. And, I'm sure you guys are going for x-rays in your life or CT scans, whatever it is. They use like lead lining and all that kind of stuff to protect from the radiation. I don't think they can go ahead and line packs with lead, but maybe there's another chemical compound or something they can use on the foil of the packs that will, stop these signals. And if they can't, then, that's bloody scary. Now, like I said in the intro, I had somebody from Fanatics reach out to me. I had a message request on Instagram, and they said they wanted to talk to me in order to hear my thoughts on how they could fix this problem, because they are looking into it and they are concerned. Now, that's obviously a good thing that they are looking into it. I found it a bit random that they reach out to me. Fanatics have ignored me for many years when I've tried to talk to them with real problems, but I appreciate the fact they came to me out of the blue. I don't know how helpful I can actually be, but I responded to basically say I'm happy to have a call. They wanted to reach out on my personal number. I obviously don't want to share that, so I offered to have the chat via Instagram, but no response yet. So I'm assuming they just caught up at the National, so this is like a watch this space kind of thing. But it's one of those things, like I said, that this company has to take very seriously. Pokemon TCG does too, because this completely undermines the secondary market. This is probably one of the biggest issues to happen to this space in a long, long time, because you've got a company now removing that barrier to entry of getting access to a machine like this. And like I said, $65 is chump change if you want to be, manipulating the hobby. We've seen a lot worse things happen when it comes to market manipulation. YouTubers pumping and dumping cards, backdooring grades, backdooring boxes, all these accusations, all these things in the past, few years that really highlights sort of how bad the hobby can actually be. This is the worst of the lot, in my opinion. And this is, worse than the whole card porn situation that we touched on with the fake BBC wraps and all that kind of thing. This is something that's going to be very mainstream if it's not fixed. And I don't know how it fixes it for existing product, but I think that just means that we as a hobby need to be on the lookout for this kind of stuff that is happening and try and protect, our fellow consumers, right? We need to be very conscious of where we're buying things from. And if we get a sniff that, some of these guys and girls out there are actually doing bad deeds, or they're scanning this kind of stuff, we need to be sharing it and calling out as soon as we do, in fact, see it. Now, one of the things I forgot to mention is that on this page where they're talking about the service is that there's a few examples of how the tool or the software, the scanning technology actually works, and sort of how they're able to sort of see it. And they show it for a few different types of TCGs, as well as some sports cards as well. And I should clarify, I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but this scanning technology, like I did talk to when we first touched on it in my original video over here, is that it's primarily picking up the foliage and the foiling on the cards themselves, which is why it's able to sort of see the outline, because it's seeing the non-foiled part as an example, which means for sports cards it's a big problem, because we have names often etched in foil on our sports cards. We often have serial numbers etched in foil on our sports cards, if not always etched in foil. So this kind of machine is going to pick it up pretty easily. And You know, one thing that's quite scary is what they say over here for sports cards is that sports cards are even easier to image than game cards because of their interesting designs, thick impressions, and foil names. We scanned a Topps 40 card pack and can characterize the names of each card, which should scare the living daylights out of you. Stadium Club is what they look through, but then they have a countless other number of examples over here that shows how they're sort of able to scan through them. So, like I said, it's pretty, big of a problem. It's one of those things that could become very, very mainstream, and for that reason alone, this could have significant impacts on the wider card market. And again, Yu-Gi-Oh, Digimon, One Piece, Lorcana, Magic the Gathering, which also, has serial numbered cards now, so it's going to have similar problems to sports cards. But like I just said, it's one of these things that is bloody concerning. So if you do in fact see it, call it out. We need to try and protect as many people as possible. And I don't know what companies do to fix this kind of stuff. I mentioned earlier maybe using, some kind of materials on the foiling or inside of the packs to block this. But then how expensive is that actually going to be to implement? If they do go ahead and implement that, is it actually going to work? Is it going to be foolproof? And if it's not going to be foolproof, then what are they going to do to try and fix it? Are they going to go back to doing, hand stamping for foil numbers instead of having serial numbers? Instead of having, a foiled serial, they're going to go back to writing them because maybe the ink doesn't get picked up when it comes to scanning like this. But it's just, like I said, one of those things that's left me speechless because of how big of a problem this could actually be. It goes back to what I said earlier. This has been happening for many years in the Pokemon space, apparently. It goes back to that video 2 weeks ago. It's been happening many years for high-end, sports cards. If this becomes more mainstream, I think we can kiss goodbye paying a premium for a pack or a box of cards that you haven't bought directly from the manufacturer themselves, which is quite disappointing. But it's just one of those things that I think has to be said because this is crazy. Like, this is like the craziest thing that's probably ever happened to this hobby. And I can't recall if I said that a bit earlier, but it doesn't get more insane than this, in my opinion. And we're going to see copycats pop up left, right, and center because this thing's actually going to make a lot of money, just like what we saw with card cleaning and some of these other, dodgy services and questionable services. People like it because people want to make as much money as possible, which is a disappointing thing to sort of hear and say, but it is what happens, right? It happens in capitalism. It happens, in all aspects of life. And it's just one of those, like I said earlier, that we as collectors need to protect our fellow collector and call it out when we do in fact see it. So that's it for today. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.